Marcus Sterling never planned on visiting Joe's diner that Tuesday morning. As rain pattered against the windows of his BMW, the 42-year-old billionaire realized he'd forgotten his phone at his penthouse apartment. Rather than having his driver turn around, he spotted the small diner's neon sign glowing through the gray morning mist and decided a cup of coffee might do him good. The bell above the door chimed as Marcus pushed it open, bringing with it the smell of bacon and coffee that reminded him of his humble beginnings. 20 years ago, before he built Sterling Technologies from his garage into a multi-billion-dollar empire, he'd been just another hungry kid working double shifts to make ends meet. The diner was busy with the morning rush. Truckers hunched over steaming mugs, office workers hurriedly shoving forkfuls of scrambled eggs into their mouths, and elderly regulars occupying their usual spots at the counter. Marcus chose an empty booth near the window, his worn jeans and simple black sweater helping him blend in perfectly with the working-class crowd. He'd never been one for flashy suits or designer watches, preferring to keep a low profile despite his $8.2 billion net worth. Sarah Mitchell hadn't slept in what felt like days. Her mother's cancer treatments were eating through her savings, and the 3 jobs she was juggling barely covered the interest on her medical loans. At 32, her dreams of becoming a nurse had been replaced by the harsh reality of surviving paycheck to paycheck. The dark circles under her eyes were poorly hidden by concealer, and her honey blonde hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail that she hadn't had time to fix properly. "Coffee?" she asked Marcus without really looking at him, her voice carrying the weight of 1,000 worries. Her feet ached in the cheap sneakers she'd bought from the discount store, and she'd already dealt with 3 rude customers that morning. "Yes, please," Marcus replied with a gentle smile, noticing how her hands trembled slightly as she poured the coffee. He'd always prided himself on treating service workers with respect, remembering his own days of working in a grocery store to put himself through college. What Sarah didn't know, as she hurried between tables with plates balanced on her arms, was that this seemingly ordinary morning would change her life forever. She didn't notice how Marcus observed the diner with keen eyes, taking in the peeling paint, the flickering light above table 6, or the way the owner shouted at a young busboy who'd accidentally dropped a glass. She couldn't have known that Marcus had originally planned to spend this morning in a board meeting discussing his company's latest tech acquisition. Instead, here he was, sitting in a vinyl booth with a slightly wobbling leg, about to become entangled in a series of events that would make headlines across the country. The coffee was bitter and slightly burned, but Marcus didn't complain. He watched as Sarah rushed back and forth, handling 4 tables at once, while somehow managing to keep a forced smile on her face. When an elderly couple waved her down to complain about their toast being too dark, he saw her shoulders slump just slightly before she straightened up and apologized profusely. Little did either of them know that in less than an hour, their lives would collide in a way that would leave them both forever changed. The security cameras in the corner of the diner silently recorded as the morning rush continued, capturing these final moments of normalcy before everything would spiral into chaos. Marcus pulled out his leather wallet to check if he had enough cash for breakfast, unaware that this simple action would trigger a chain of events that would soon have millions of people watching, sharing, and debating online. In just a few minutes, Sarah Mitchell would make a mistake that would turn her entire world upside down. Sarah's morning went from bad to worse when her phone buzzed with a text from the hospital. Her mother's latest test results showed the cancer was spreading faster than expected, and they needed to discuss payment options before continuing treatment. Her hands shook as she shoved the phone back into her apron pocket, fighting back tears. That's when she noticed Marcus waving her over to his table. He held the check in his hand, and something about his calm demeanor irritated her. How nice it must be, she thought, to sit there without a care in the world, while others were drowning in problems. "Excuse me," Marcus said politely, pointing to the bill, "but I think there might be a mistake here. The menu shows the breakfast special at $8.99, but I've been charged $12.99. He wasn't angry or accusatory, just stating a fact. But Sarah had reached her breaking point. The combination of sleepless nights, mounting bills, her mother's worsening condition, and now this customer questioning her accuracy was too much. Her face flushed red as emotions she'd been bottling up for months suddenly boiled over. "Oh, so you're one of those people," she snapped, loud enough for nearby customers to turn their heads. "Looking to save a few dollars by making up problems. I've been doing this job for 10 years, sir. I don't make mistakes on bills." Marcus remained calm, reaching for the menu to show her the price difference. "I'm not trying to cause trouble. See? Right here." "No, you see." Sarah's voice cracked with emotion. "Every day I deal with people like you, thinking they can push us around because we're just servers. Well, I'm sick of it." Her hands were trembling now, and other diners had stopped eating to watch the scene unfold. Several customers had their phones out, recording what happened next. In a moment that would soon go viral across social media, Sarah Mitchell did something that would haunt her for years to come. As Marcus began to stand, trying to defuse the situation, her hand moved seemingly of its own accord. The sharp crack of the slap echoed through the suddenly silent diner. Marcus's head snapped to the side, his cheek immediately reddening from the impact. Coffee cups froze halfway to mouths. Forks clattered onto plates. Someone gasped. Time seemed to stand still as Sarah's brain caught up with what her hand had done. Her anger vanished instantly, replaced by horror as she stared at her own palm, still tingling from the contact. Marcus touched his cheek slowly, his expression unreadable. I, Sarah stammered, but no words could undo what she'd just done. The diner remained deathly quiet except for the sound of smartphones clicking and whirring as customers captured every moment of the incident. Marcus didn't yell. He didn't threaten or make a scene. Instead, he calmly pulled out his wallet, placed a $100 bill on the table, and sat back down. His silence was more terrifying than any reaction Sarah could have imagined. "Keep the change," he said quietly, his eyes never leaving hers. Something in his steady gaze made Sarah's stomach drop. This wasn't the reaction of someone who would simply walk away and forget about what happened. A teenage girl in the corner whispered excitedly to her friend, "This is going viral. Look at the views already." The sound of notifications pinging from various phones filled the air as the video began spreading across social media platforms. Sarah stood frozen, her career and life flashing before her eyes. She had no way of knowing that the worst was yet to come, or that the next 10 minutes would completely reshape her future. As she watched Marcus calmly sip his coffee, she couldn't shake the feeling that she had just made the biggest mistake of her life. The diner's kitchen door burst open with such force that it banged against the wall, making everyone jump. Joe Thompson, the owner, emerged with his face as white as the order tickets clutched in his trembling hands. His eyes darted frantically between Sarah and Marcus, looking like a man who'd just seen a ghost. "Sarah," Joe's voice cracked as he called her over. She could see beads of sweat forming on his forehead, despite the diner's blasting air conditioning. "Do you have any idea who you just slapped?" Before Sarah could respond, Joe thrust his phone in her face. On the screen was a Forbes article with a familiar face, the same face she'd slapped moments ago. The headline read, "Marcus Sterling, the self-made tech genius behind Sterling Technologies' $8.2 billion empire." Sarah's legs gave out, and she had to grab onto a nearby table to steady herself. The room started spinning as she read further. Known for his strategic business takeovers and ruthless approach to corporate competition, Sterling has never lost a business battle. The words "ruthless approach" made her stomach churn. Around her, the diner had erupted into excited whispers as other customers made the same discovery. Phones were lighting up everywhere as the video of the slap gained thousands of views by the minute. "Oh my God, it's really him," a young woman squealed, comparing the Forbes photo to the man still calmly sitting at his table. "He's the one who bought out that restaurant chain that mistreated their staff last year and fired all the management." Another customer chimed in, Didn't he also take down that tech company that tried to steal his patents? They went bankrupt within a month. Each new comment felt like another nail in Sarah's coffin. Her hand shook as she pulled out her own phone, which was already buzzing with notifications. The video had gone viral, with millions of views and comments pouring in. She's so fired. That's Marcus Sterling. She's done for. Watch her life get destroyed in 3, 2, 1. Joe was pacing now, running his hands through his thinning hair. Do you realize what you've done? He could buy this entire block just to tear down our diner. He could blacklist us all from ever working in food service again. Sarah watched in horror as more black SUVs pulled up outside the diner. Men in sharp suits emerged, their expressions serious as they spoke into their earpieces. Through the window, she could see news vans beginning to arrive, their satellite dishes extending skyward. Marcus hadn't moved from his seat. He was on his phone now, speaking quietly but intensely to someone. Despite the chaos erupting around him, he remained eerily composed, occasionally glancing at Sarah with an unreadable expression. "Sarah," Joe said, his voice now barely a whisper, "you're fired. I'm sorry, but I can't. We can't. Just please leave before this gets worse." Tears welled up in Sarah's eyes as she untied her apron with trembling fingers. Her mother's medical bills flashed through her mind. How would she pay them now? Who would hire her after this video went viral? Her entire life was unraveling in real time, broadcast for the world to see. As she gathered her things from the break room, she could hear the suits entering the diner. Words like lawyers and legal action drifted through the walls. The local news was already setting up their cameras outside, and she could see more people gathering on the sidewalk, phones raised to capture whatever happened next. Sarah Mitchell, who had started her day as an anonymous waitress, was about to become the internet's latest cautionary tale. And Marcus Sterling, the billionaire she'd so fatally underestimated, was just getting started with what would become one of the most talked about acts of revenge in recent memory. Sarah pushed open the diner's back door, clutching her bag to her chest. The sound of camera shutters clicking made her flinch. Somehow, the press had already found the rear exit. "Miss Mitchell, can you tell us what made you slap Mr. Sterling?" a reporter shouted. Another chimed in. "Were you aware of his identity?" Ducking her head, she rushed to her rusty Honda Civic, tears blurring her vision. Her phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Messages from friends, family, and countless strangers who'd seen the video. Even her mother had texted, "Honey, please tell me that's not you in the viral video everyone's sharing." Inside the diner, things were taking an even more dramatic turn. Marcus Sterling's security team had efficiently cleared half the restaurant, creating a makeshift command center at several pushed-together tables. Men and women in expensive suits were spreading out documents, making calls, and typing furiously on laptops. Joe Thompson, the diner's owner, sat across from Marcus, his hand shaking so badly he could barely hold his coffee cup. The lawyer beside Marcus was reading from a tablet. "In the past 3 years, your establishment has had 17 health code violations, 22 wage complaints, and," the lawyer paused for effect, 4 unreported workplace accidents. Marcus himself hadn't moved from his original seat. The red mark from Sarah's slap had faded, but its impact was still sending shockwaves through the building. He observed everything with calculating eyes, occasionally giving short nods to his team members as they brought him updates. "Sir," one of his assistants approached with a folder, "we found something interesting about Miss Mitchell." Marcus raised an eyebrow, taking the folder. Inside were printouts of Sarah's social media posts about her mother's cancer treatment, her struggles with medical bills, and her dream of becoming a nurse, all put on hold to care for her sick parent. Outside, the crowd had grown larger. Local news vans were double parked along the street, their reporters doing live updates. "We're standing outside Joe's Diner, where just hours ago, a waitress assaulted one of America's most powerful tech billionaires." Sarah sat in her car, unable to drive away, paralyzed by fear and regret. Through her rearview mirror, she watched more black SUVs arrive. A team of health inspectors emerged from one vehicle, heading toward the diner's entrance. From another came what looked like Labor Department officials. Back inside, Joe's face had turned from white to green as Marcus's team continued their impromptu audit. "Your grease traps haven't been cleaned in 8 months," one inspector noted. "And these timesheets show employees working overtime without proper compensation," added another. Marcus finally stood up, straightening his simple black sweater. The diner fell completely silent. Even the kitchen staff stopped what they were doing to watch. He walked to the window, looking out at the media circus that had formed on the street. "Mr. Sterling," Joe stammered, "please, I'll do anything. This diner is all I have. My family has owned it for 3 generations." Marcus turned slowly, his expression unreadable. He pulled out his phone and made one final call. "Janet, prepare the paperwork for a business acquisition." His voice was calm but carried an unmistakable note of authority. "And get me everything you can find about Sarah Mitchell's mother's medical situation. Every bill, every treatment plan, everything." The color drained from Joe's face as he realized what was happening. Outside, Sarah finally started her car, mascara streaking down her cheeks as she prepared to leave what she thought was the worst day of her life behind her. Neither of them knew that Marcus Sterling's apparent revenge was about to take a turn that nobody, not the reporters, not the viral video viewers, and certainly not Sarah, could have predicted. A quiet murmur spread through the diner as Marcus straightened his posture and said words that would set the next phase of his plan in motion. "Let's begin." Over the next few hours, Marcus Sterling's team descended on Joe's diner like a swarm of well-dressed locusts. Every cabinet was opened, every document examined, and every corner inspected. The investigation revealed a story far darker than a simple slap could ever be. In the kitchen, health inspectors found moldy food hidden behind fresh supplies. "Look at these expiration dates," one inspector called out, pulling containers from the back of the refrigerator. "Some of these items are from last year." The head chef, unable to meet anyone's eyes, admitted that Joe had forced them to use expired ingredients to save money. At a corner table, 2 accountants pored over years of financial records, their faces growing grimmer by the minute. "Mr. Sterling," one called out, waving a stack of papers, "we've found evidence of systematic wage theft. He's been shorting his employees' paychecks for years, especially the undocumented workers in the kitchen." Marcus stood by the counter, watching the scene unfold while occasionally glancing at his phone. Social media was exploding with new developments. The viral slap video had spawned hundreds of reaction videos, memes, and hot takes. But now, people were starting to dig deeper. Former employees began posting their stories. "I worked there for 2 years, and Joe never paid me overtime," one wrote. Another shared, "I got fired after I cut my hand on a broken dishwasher and asked him to pay the medical bills." Joe sat slumped in a booth, watching his empire crumble. His phone wouldn't stop ringing. Health department officials, labor board investigators, and even his own lawyer had abandoned him after seeing the mounting evidence. "Mr. Sterling," a young analyst approached with a tablet, "we've completed the background check on Sarah Mitchell." Marcus took the device, his eyes scanning the screen intently. The report painted a picture of a woman pushed to her breaking point. 3 jobs, mounting medical bills, and a perfect employment record until today. Meanwhile, in the hospital across town, Sarah's mother received an unexpected visit from a team of medical billing specialists. They asked detailed questions about her treatment plan, costs, and insurance coverage, taking copious notes while refusing to explain who had sent them. Back at the diner, Marcus's team had set up a makeshift interview room in the back office. One by one, current and former employees came forward to share their stories. The pattern was clear: years of exploitation, unsafe working conditions, and financial manipulation. "Sir," his head of security approached, "the media is requesting statements." The story's gone national. Indeed, major news networks had picked up the tale, But the narrative was shifting. What started as Waitress SLAPS Billionaire was evolving into Billionaire uncovers years of worker exploitation. Marcus nodded, then made another call. Begin phase 2. And make sure our friends at the Labor Department have everything they need. His voice was quiet, but carried the weight of someone used to making decisions that changed lives. In the kitchen, the health inspectors were sealing everything with yellow tape. This facility is officially shut down until further notice, they announced. The remaining customers were escorted out, and Kilo's E signs were hung in the windows. Joe, watching his life's work being dismantled, finally broke down. Please, he begged Marcus, I'll make changes. I'll pay whatever fines there are. Just don't destroy everything. Marcus simply handed him a business card. My lawyers will be in touch, he said, his voice neither angry nor triumphant. You should probably call yours. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows through the diner's windows, Marcus's team started packing up their equipment. The day's investigation had revealed not just a poorly run restaurant, but a systemic failure that had hurt countless employees over the years. What no one knew yet was that Marcus Sterling's true plan was just beginning to unfold. The revenge everyone expected, the destruction of a small diner, and the public humiliation of a desperate waitress was about to transform into something entirely different. 3 weeks after the slap that broke the internet, Joe's Diner underwent a transformation that nobody saw coming. Construction crews arrived before dawn, their trucks lining the street where news vans had once parked. The familiar but faded sign came down, and the entire building was wrapped in black construction barriers emblazoned with the Sterling Technologies logo. Inside, everything changed. The greasy old kitchen equipment was replaced with state-of-the-art appliances that gleamed under new LED lighting. The cracked vinyl booths gave way to comfortable, modern seating, and the wobbling tables were swapped for solid oak ones. Even the air felt different, with a new ventilation system purifying every breath. But Marcus Sterling's renovation went far beyond just the physical space. His team had spent weeks interviewing every former employee, learning their stories, understanding their struggles. Now, one by one, they received calls that left them speechless. We'd like to offer you your job back, the hiring manager would say, but with some changes. Those changes included full health benefits, retirement plans, and salaries that made the former staff wonder if they were dreaming. All except Joe, who had sold the diner at a fraction of its worth after facing multiple lawsuits and potential criminal charges. The local news, which had feasted on the viral slap story for weeks, couldn't believe the new angle. Billionaire transforms troubled diner into workers' paradise, read one headline. Sterling's sweet revenge. Turning scandal into success, declared another. Social media exploded again, but this time with a different tone. The same platforms that had condemned Sarah now filled with messages of hope and admiration for Marcus's approach. This is how you use power for good. One viral tweet read. From viral slap to vital change, another proclaimed. The kitchen staff, many of whom had worked under the table for years, received not just legal status through Sterling's army of immigration lawyers, but also training from professional chefs. The dining room staff got certified in food safety and customer service, with bonuses tied to customer satisfaction rather than tips. But the most stunning transformation wasn't the building or its operations. It was the diner's new mission. Sterling Technologies announced that the restaurant would serve as a training ground for people wanting to enter the hospitality industry. Students would learn everything from proper food handling to business management, all while earning a living wage. The construction barriers finally came down on a sunny Monday morning. The new sign read Sterling's Community Kitchen and Training Center, but locals still called it Joe's out of habit. The interior sparkled with possibility, from the open kitchen design to the digital ordering systems at every table. Regular customers who came for their usual coffee were shocked to find their old favorites on the menu, but elevated, better ingredients, better preparation, better presentation. More surprisingly, the prices hadn't skyrocketed as everyone feared. Quality food shouldn't be a luxury. Marcus had insisted when planning the menu. The former employees who returned found their jobs transformed. Gone were the grueling double shifts and tip-dependent income. Instead, they had regular hours, healthcare benefits, and clear paths for advancement. The dishwashers could train to become line cooks, the servers could learn management skills, and everyone had access to education assistance. Local business owners watched in amazement as the diner became a model for ethical business practices. Some complained it was unfair. How could they compete with Sterling's benefits package? Others started making changes to their own practices, fearing they might be next under Marcus's microscope. But as successful as the transformation was, one question remained on everyone's minds. What about Sarah Mitchell? The woman whose impulsive action had started it all hadn't been seen since that fateful day. Rumors swirled about her whereabouts, and social media buzzed with theories about what Sterling had planned for her. Little did anyone know, Marcus Sterling's master plan was far from complete. The diner's transformation was just the beginning, and Sarah's story was about to take another unexpected turn. Sarah Mitchell sat in her car, staring at the crisp white envelope in her hands. The Sterling Technologies logo gleamed in the corner, making her heart race. For 3 months, she'd been living in her sister's spare room, too ashamed to face the world after becoming that waitress who slapped a billionaire. Her mother's cancer treatments had mysteriously been paid in full 2 weeks after the incident. The hospital said an anonymous donor had covered everything, including future treatments. Sarah had her suspicions about who it might be, but she'd been too scared to investigate further. With trembling fingers, she opened the envelope. Inside wasn't the lawsuit she'd been dreading, but something far more unexpected. A job offer. Not just any job. The position of general manager at the newly renovated Sterling's Community Kitchen and Training Center, formerly known as Joe's Diner. The letter was personally signed by Marcus Sterling. Dear Ms. Mitchell, sometimes our worst moments lead us to our greatest opportunities. Your passion for justice, though misplaced that day, showed me something rare in today's world: raw honesty. Sarah couldn't believe what she was reading. The salary listed was triple what she'd been making before. The benefits package included full health coverage, educational assistance to complete her nursing degree, and flexible hours to care for her mother. As she sat there, crying in her car, her phone buzzed with a text message. The door's unlocked. Come inside when you're ready. MS. She looked up to see Marcus Sterling himself standing in the diner's doorway, wearing the same simple black sweater from that infamous day. Inside, the diner she'd known for 10 years was unrecognizable. Gone were the greasy floors and flickering lights. Instead, she found a state-of-the-art facility humming with positive energy. Former coworkers greeted her with hugs and smiles, all wearing crisp new uniforms. Your anger that day, Marcus said as they toured the facility, wasn't really about the bill, was it? Sarah shook her head, remembering her frustration with the broken system that had forced her to choose between her dreams and her mother's life. I could have destroyed you, he continued, stopping by the window where he'd sat that day. That's what everyone expected. But revenge doesn't always mean destruction. Sometimes, the best revenge is creating something better from the ashes of our mistakes. He showed her the training programs they'd developed, explaining how each employee could now advance their careers while working. The kitchen staff were receiving culinary certificates. The servers were learning business management. Even the dishwashers had clear paths to promotion. But why me? Sarah finally asked the question that had been burning in her mind. Why offer the manager position to the person who slapped you? Marcus smiled. Because you taught me something valuable. Your act of defiance, though misguided, showed me that this place needed someone who cared enough to fight for what's right, even if they did it the wrong way. Tears welled up in Sarah's eyes as she realized the true magnitude of his revenge. Instead of destroying her life, he'd given her everything she'd been fighting for: health care for her mother, education for herself, and a chance to make a real difference in others' lives. The story went viral again, but this time with a different headline: Billionaire's Perfect Revenge. Turning viral slap into community victory. Social media exploded with people sharing the story, calling it the ultimate example of turning the other cheek. 1 year later, Sterling's Community Kitchen and Training Center became a model for businesses nationwide. Sarah completed her nursing degree while managing the diner and started a program helping other struggling families navigate medical bills. The slap that could have ruined her life instead created ripples of positive change throughout the community. Marcus Sterling had indeed gotten his revenge, not by tearing someone down, but by lifting an entire community up. And Sarah Mitchell, the waitress who dared to slap a billionaire, became living proof that sometimes the worst mistakes can lead to the most beautiful transformations.